careful of those island boys. Little girl, use your head. They will tear you up like a paper toy. Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, no, no, no.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Rumbi.
Welcome to It's Layered.
We're in a long-distance friendship that started over 20 years ago when we were in high school.
We'll be talking about all things life, love, family, anything and everything else under the sun.
Delve deeper with us because in life, you know, Jine, my layers.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of It's Layered. We are really thrilled today because we have a special guest in the building talking about a very interesting topic. We're going to be talking about marriage today. And we're so stoked because we have Kudzai Kanyangarara, Kudzi. And he is a media professional by day and also a husband and father of two by day and night, if that makes sense.
Always.
By always, all day, every day. You know, he has traveled the world. He is someone who understands Zimbabwean tradition and also a very sort of global perspective on not just marriage, but life. And we thought his perspective would be so dope for us to share with you on here. So a really, really warm welcome to you. It's Layered Podcast, Kudzi.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Excited to get into it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get into it.
Difficult topic in the world.
Yes, yes. And
Of all the topics.
Of all, it's the most talked about. And you can see, because if you're watching the video, he dressed up for us. He's ready to spit the bars. So thank you for coming through. I just think let's dive right into it. Let's not waste no time. So Kudzi, for you, you've been married for 9 years this year. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, yeah.
9 years this year. Some of us
Wow.
No,
we're not even anywhere near that. So what would you say for you was the most overrated and underrated marriage advice that you got? Overrated and underrated.
I think you know, when you're about to embark on this journey of marriage and you've decided that this is your person and you're going to take that step, everybody and their dog has got 5 cents to say about everything, about who you should be, what you should be like, where you should live, how you should behave, how you shouldn't behave, what makes a good wife, what makes a good husband, what makes a good father, and the rhetoric. I think that the most overrated thing is the fact that everyone believes that they're an expert. And I think that that's not true. I think that there's certain guidelines that are perpetuated by certain narratives, right? Which is either culture, customs, religion, social status, or whatever. But I think fundamentally it's really about you as the individual first and foremost, and then you as a couple on a secondary level, right? So we're not talking about kids, we're just talking about marriage, right? So
yes.
So I think that what works for you and your partner is what should be, you know, the path and the road, because it's not one size fits all. And I think a lot of people who embark on this journey, and I use that term very loosely, you know, put a lot of pressure on themselves to fit a particular mold, and that's crap, man. I don't know if I can say crap on your podcast. But
Yeah, you can.
It's crap, man. I think that it really is about what fits you and how you're going to make it work for yourself and for your significant other. You know, the most underrated value, or rather advice that I got there is marriage is hard. Marriage is hard.
I have to say that again.
It's something that you think you're ready for and prepared for, and I think some people are, but you don't know the complexities that come with it. Because I think when you do get married, yeah, it's like I said, first about yourself, and secondly about your partner or your relationship with the individual. But there's so many aspects that come into that, like extended families, expectations of each other, expectations of families, no matter where they sit, expectations of performance financially, performance in bed, performance, as a husband, as a wife. This thing ain't for pussies, man. Like
say that again.
Preach, please.
You've got to be in for the long haul and the run, and you take the knocks, and you also celebrate the wins and successes. So I think that'll be the two things that I think were most overrated and underrated. And look, I'm still learning. I'm 9 years in, and every day is something different, and every day brings a different challenge. And who knows? 10 years from now, maybe I'm sitting here, maybe I'm not, but I don't know. I'm here for the ride. Let's see.
Yo, Kudzi, you just unleashed a whole. I'm just like, yes. But we'll get into some of the what you've mentioned as we go. I'm curious for you, Am, because you've also been in the game longer than I have. What was like the most overrated?
I'm leading into 4 years, so I feel like I'm still young in this game. But I think definitely underrated is that it's a choice for you every day. Like, people celebrate the big milestones, we just said all the years we've been married for, but every day, I swear, I wake up, I'm like, those vows, what were those vows again? Like through sickness, through health, because every day one of those vows are hitting you, and I think people really underestimate. People want to do the big wins, the big accomplishments. You've got 2 kids now, you got this now, you got a house now, but it's like every day is a win. Every day that you can like go, okay, we did that, high five with your partner. I think that's like something we forget, that it's the little steps that make the big steps. Overrated, I think weddings, which is not really to do with marriage, but girl, weddings, like, give me that money so I can put it into my actual marriage. That's just, for me, I think it's like the wrong foot in so many ways, and so much drama comes out of doing that it sets some couples on the wrong course, which might not happen if they were doing a smaller or much more just between the bride and groom wedding.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Very interesting. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say what the most overrated.
Yes, you're newlywed. Do you want to hear?
I don't know. Like, I think the most overrated advice is the notion that you, especially as a wife, are there to please this man. I don't know how else to put it. Like, your job is to cook for him, to clean for him, to be everything for him, and no real emphasis on like also take care of you in the process of doing that. I don't know how to explain. Like, I think there's always emphasis on you have to perform these duties. That's how I felt. At least that's the advice I get. Or you're supposed to, I don't know. That's what I would say is overrated.
Don't you feel like that advice? Don't you feel like that kind of notion? Sorry to interrupt you. Comes from women in kind of your circles. Like, I don't think that pressure comes from men. Yeah, I mean, there's
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's absolutely women.
You must be there to cook and clean for me. You must, especially I think as young modern people, like, no one really thinks like that anyway. Of course, it's nice that there's a meal and I feel taken care of, but like the pressure of it isn't coming from men. It's coming from women, especially elder women, who are saying this is what makes a good wife, I think, which is crap. Like,
absolutely, absolutely. It's absolutely that. Like, it's the kitchen teas. Like, when I had my kitchen tea, I was like shaking because I was like, I don't know, my poker face ain't on. Like, I'm not going to be able to, hold the face. But Yeah, I think that was the talk of what you should be, just like do this, do that. I think that can be very overrated. I think Kudzi, you alluded to it, like everyone feels like they are the expert, and you're just like, yo, this is a lot. And I think the most underrated marriage advice is that you should talk things through, which seems very basic, but like just know that it's okay. You are not always going to be off bat, be like, yes, this is great, let's go ahead. Like you're going to be talking a lot of things through, and it's okay. Like it doesn't mean that it's things aren't going well or things are fantastic. It's just you're going to have to know that talking and communicating is part of the game.
And I think it's such a vital part of the game, especially from male perspective, because as men in general, and I can only speak for myself, but I think it's true for a lot of us, is that we're really bad communicators. Right? So like, besides somebody speaking from experience, like we're really bad communicators, and it comes from a couple of things. It comes from the fact that we grow up to be the strong, the provider, and that whole kind of paradigm, right? But also in the fact that because we're not taught to be vulnerable and share the burden, because at the end of the day, no matter how much I feel bad about something, it is still my responsibility as the primary provider and family caregiver to get it right. So even when I my kind of thing, like, oh, babe, this is such a problem for me, etc., I don't know how I'm going to handle it. It's still on me to sort it out, not on her to sort it out, or us to sort it out. And I think a lot of guys feel that pressure. I know I definitely feel that pressure. So when I share things that upset me or that I find difficult, just in general life, etc., that impact my relationship and my family, it's always kind of dumbed down. Because I still got to be that guy who makes the plan. It is not responsibility to make the plan, and I think that as guys, we need to get better at communicating, the challenges that we face, because I think that generally 9 times out of 10, maybe I'll bring that down, 7.5 times out of 10.
Let me change that stat.
I mean, 7.5 times out of 10, your partner is very willing and engaging to meet you halfway and say, okay, cool, how do we sort this out?
Yes.
How do we sort this out? Let's ride together, we die together type of thing. And I went through something like that recently, and it was amazing to see like how like my partner was there, where you kind of had this thing with that, I can't say, this is what they want, and it really wasn't like that. So we need to get guys to talk, and the way to get guys, and I tell people this all the time, you coming to me as my partner, my friend, my colleague, my pastor, whoever, and say, you know what, Amanda, you can come and talk to me, right? It means absolutely zero in the greater scheme of things. Okay. Me talking to you is not about you saying to me, I can talk to you. It's about how you make me feel as if I have the confidence to talk to you.
Creating the safe space for you to feel like you can go in.
Safe space. Let's say that, oh, the door's open, there it is, go walk through it. No, you open the door and you literally walk me through the door. And then once I'm into the door, then I will share everything else that comes with that. I think that says a lot for a lot of people. But as wives, as partners, boyfriends, however you want to cut it, is be open to holding your partner, your male partner through that process, and push the communication guidance. Saying, we must talk. Tell me about this. I'm talking about that. Don't hold back on digging into information now, because you also we get tired of like, it's fine, he's just being himself, and then you fall away, and then I also become super recluse, and I just go out and do my own thing.
That's so interesting, because you don't want to. Sometimes because we can talk, we over talk. I think we talk, like we share, and not only like with our partner, with friends, like it's just the nature of women, and it's so great to hear that from you, that it's okay to kind of try and get it out of your partner, that it's okay to talk to me, because they I think men typically don't grow up with this thing of like, yeah, just share how you feel. So you have to encourage that. And sometimes it feels like, am I nagging now? Or am I being too, thanks.
Yeah. But I think also because we do share, then men worry we'll share with others when they open up to us. So it's like, oh, okay, I told my wife, but I didn't want to tell her sister. You know what I mean? Like, or a mother. So we also need to be very conscious and very conscientious, of someone's, like, if someone reaches out to you and is telling you something vulnerable, it doesn't have to be for everybody, which I think a lot of girls, we don't have boundaries sometimes.
It's true.
Don't air your dirty laundry out.
And
by saying that, I'm not saying that when you do have challenges and issues in any relationship is that, you must stick with it at home and sort it out, because sometimes you can't. Sometimes you need someone to intervene from an external party, etc. But when you do share from from partner A and partner B, I'm trying to be non-binary at the moment, is share with somebody you have the trust and confidence in. And if you share something with them, share with them on the basis that if push comes to shove, you're willing to put that person in front of the other person and say, right, they know all the full story and this is what it's about.
Yes.
Yeah. Right? If you can't do that, they don't share with that person.
Oh,
yeah, definitely. There's a lot of ideas we have about marriage, even growing up, or I'm sure even when you were dating before you got married. Is there something you wish you knew before walking into marriage that would have been handy for you to know? You're like,
I have such a go-to answer for that, but I don't think it's appropriate.
No, please.
Don't run for the hills. Run. No. I kid. I think, I don't know, man. I mean, I think, like my situation is a little bit different from, I think, some people. It's just that I think I was lucky to meet my partner when I was quite young, and we clicked, and it just worked, and it just fitted down the mold. So I'm grateful and I'm blessed for that. But I think that things that you need to know is that I think, like we mentioned it, I think a lot of people lose themselves in relationships, because you feel like you have to be some kind of way. I was having this conversation with a really good friend of mine. She's been divorced, and she's struggling with a new partner, etc. And she was saying that, no, I don't understand why he can't be with me and not be with that group of friends, right? And and the group of friends is female, but it's, from my perspective, I don't think it's anything untoward, but she doesn't want him being around that group or that particular person. I'm like, but why would you want him to give up on that? That's his G. Whether she's female or male, it doesn't make a difference, right? That circle provides something that you cannot provide, right? And you need to be comfortable in understanding that it has a place in his life, whether you like it or not, right? He'll manage, if he's, I think, a good bloke, he'll manage the interactions so that it doesn't, affect you too much, but it's still part of what makes him, and that's what you love. You love him, and that's a part of him. And the notion was like, no, when you get to that point, you need to give up all your friends, or you need to give up all your friends, and especially the ones that make me feel uncomfortable. It's part of the course. That's what marriage is about. I said, no, crap, bullshit. That's not what marriage is about. It's not about that. It's about how do you manage that situation as best as possible. But you need to be amenable to the fact that will be always part of his life, and he also needs to be amenable to the fact that for you're always going to be uncomfortable with that. So how do you find a middle ground, right? And I think within that, there's a lot of pressure that young women, young men young men and men put on themselves on how to be in a textbook relationship, where you don't. Like, I really think that if you go into something of this nature and you are really comfortable in yourself, and you find a partner that pushes you and gets you to where you want to be and makes you happy, then that's great. Everything else you kind of work out as you go along. I think, spoilt by the fact that media portrays relationships in a particular manner. And historically, our parents come with a particular guise and notion, especially, if we come from quite a traditional family, and, you must do this, you must get married in the church, and like, but it worked for you guys. It doesn't necessarily have to work now, especially in the world that we live. We live in such a global environment. 9 times out of 10, okay, if your child is globally open, they are not going to marry somebody from their own tribe, culture, religion, family background, etc. I mean, I don't know your husband, but if you take me and me, for example, well, there you go. Case in point.
No, definitely.
Marry a Shona person from Zimbabwe, from Mariah, who comes from Africa, that we didn't, right?
So that turns into my brother, like literally. Like,
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like, right. So how do you prepare somebody for this journey? And I think that you've got to be open to different cultures and different ways of doing things, and there's no right or wrong way about it. It's just what's comfortable for you. You've got to be open to the fact that, if your child is, non-binary, for argument's sake, how are you going to be, how do you manage that situation, And I can go into a whole tangent about that, like I have a notion about my kids, and I was like, when my kids grow up, do I want to teach them the values of marriage and what it is, kind of the way we learned it? Then frankly, no, I really don't. I really don't want to manage it at all that way. If they're that way inclined, by all means, no worries, go for it. But like, if my child or any one of my children decide that, or not decide, but are gay, right? Like, the worst thing for me would be for them to come home and sit down and say, Dad, I need to tell you something. I'm going to come out now. Why would you do that? Why would you feel like if you were straight, you feel like you need to come and say, Dad, listen, I'm going to tell you now.
That part.
Yes.
That part.
No.
Wow.
You think I don't know? Of course I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Of course I know. And it's we need to get rid of that stigma. Like, let people be people. And I know this is a very contentious topic, right? So I'm not going to diverge a little bit from what we're trying to discuss.
Yeah.
It's important, right? In the sense that we're more so open as a society and a culture to multiple lifestyles of living at the moment. You're non-binary, you're polyamorous, whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with either one of them, right? As long as it's right for you, and as long as you are not hurting yourself primarily, or hurting, the person you choose to be involved with.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Because then go do your thing. Like, it really doesn't change the way you live your life, the way you're going to grow. I still think that marriage in today's world is a great coming together of people and a great coming together of families, etc. But we have to pose the question, is marriage still relevant in today's world? And this is my point in one of your questions going forward.
Yeah.
Is it still man, as a married guy, I'll tell you right now, the first guy said, like, I really don't think so.
I'm just gonna cut that now.
I really don't think so. And I'm not saying that you can't be with the person and be monogamous and you can't be with that person forever, etc. Right? But going to a court or going to a church, signing a piece of paper saying this is my person and this is you're now my I'm your significant other, and we write it down. What purpose does it serve?
Yes. Yeah.
I have a very one way of looking at this thing, and that's marriage for me was historically always let me precursor this. Forget the religious
side of it. Yes.
So take that, put in a box, we're putting it over there. A world order perspective, right? It was about title.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
I believe this. Take it with a pinch of salt. Marriage was about title. Previously, as a woman, it was very difficult to function in society on the basis that you were a woman. You had no right, you had no say, you couldn't get a job, you couldn't fend for yourself. So it was always based on the fact that the man had to go and provide. So if you couldn't provide, the man would then marry you, bring you into his family, you raised the family, and then that family became yours, and then you had title and everything else, right?
Yeah.
In today's world, You guys are consummate professionals. You're
Yeah.
brilliant. You can go change the world.
Yeah.
Right?
It's quite interesting. You just on the issue of titles, we're doing reports right now at work for kids reports, and we have to sign. We were asked to sign off and say, like, you say your name, Miss or Mrs. or whatever, and then I chose Ms. Rumbi, just like very simple, basic. And then my colleagues were like, no, but aren't you married? Shouldn't you be putting Mrs.? And I was like, I can use MS. MS signifies that I don't want people to know, or I don't care. I don't think they should care to know my marital status or not. Then they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I think it is what it is. It doesn't change my ability to do my job. And it's quite an interesting perspective that people still feel they need to, you know, distinguish between that. So that's a very right, but I don't have to. Whereas my mom told me when she was, she got married to my dad, she couldn't get a loan by herself. She needed my dad with her to, you know, to get the loan for the family, for whatever. So it's a completely different ball game for sure.
Yeah,
I get that.
100%, you know, and I think that, you know, there's more opportunity out there for empowered women and women to do the best and live their best life in their own entirety. And then you find that I think a lot of relationships who struggle with, you know, masculinity in their relationship, where the woman becomes the breadwinner in the family and the guy doesn't, and now homie doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I get that. I get how that could feel, but at the same time, you've got to be open to the fact that that can definitely happen.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, like, we need to be as flexible as we possibly can be.
Yeah.
Take that box that we had, the religious box, and bring it back into the fold, right? It changes the game, because religion stipulates specifically what is right, what is wrong, who you should be, how you man and wife. Man and man doesn't even register.
Yeah,
the woman doesn't even register. You know, then there's culture. Bring that box back, right? Do you do monogamy? Do you do polygamy? I don't know, you know?
Don't know. There's so many layers to this whole topic of marriage. And we don't want to sound like we are necessarily a broken record in terms of, like, not bringing down marriage and its complexities per se. But obviously the three of us got married for some reason or another. I'm curious to know, like, for you, let's start, Amanda, what would you say are the best parts of marriage for you? Because someone would be like, Saka, you guys are sitting here busy saying, oh, X, Y, Z, you know, why did you even say I do? Like, especially for me, like, I question it all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, so you did say I do. Why was that I do important for me? So what are the best parts of marriage, would you say?
Well, I personally, if I didn't have to have the culture box and the religion box in my life, I don't think I would be married. I would be in a partnership, because in Australia, no one cares. Like, people, like, you know, I feel like the term wife means so much more in Zimbabwe. In Australia, they actually look at you like you're trapped. Like, they're like, sorry. Shame. You know, like, they don't perceive it that way. You know, so I guess I did it personally. I definitely know I got married out of respect. And my husband is German, and I knew there's no way we can continue our relationship, or that he can be seen as an equal in my family without marriage. So I used it as a key to unlock peace into my life. You know, and so I guess now, obviously, I'm team married. So I would have to say it's companionship, but that could still be there without the. So I'm lost. I'm with Kudzi on this, where I'm like, I'm team. What are we doing? Like, we just see what. So, but I don't want to sound so. But I guess you have to take into account culture and the world, the two worlds we live in, the balancing the Zimbabwean side, and you know, so. Out of respect, I got married.
Yeah. And for you, Kudzi, what are the best parts?
The best parts of being married. I think that it's companionship for sure. I mean, you know, you've got your proverbial best friend with you all the time. And you know, it's somebody you can lean on, like I said, when times get tough. and somebody I think who understands you probably better than most.
Yes.
And I said, I think that I was one of the lucky few who found a partner quite young, you know. That being said, I think all of those things still live outside of signing a piece of paper.
That part.
Point. Yeah.
That part.
Well, all those things still live outside signing a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but I'm not saying that, you know, you one shouldn't get married because you've got all those things. But I think that if the institution of marriage, because I think that's what we're discussing today, it's not have a good partner or not.
Yes,
right?
It's the institution.
The institution of marriage right for you and what you think that it's going to deliver for you, then by all means go do it. You know?
Yeah.
Part of, I think, why, like I said, I think people in our generation come, yes, there's that proverbial pressure of families saying that life goes such a way. You grow up, date somebody, you get married, you have kids, you die. Right.
Keep your job for 40 years.
Keep your job for 40 years, retire on a pension or something out there. But I think that, you know, we grew up in such a pivotal point in how society is. You know, 40 years ago, it was very different, you know. But you still have a space for the union because people still believe it and people still want it. And it's a question I have for you guys, but I'll come to that now. You know, and it's, I think the way the world generally works is that you are still seen as more of a good human being if you are married. If you're not married.
100%.
Right? Yeah. And I was looking at something where someone was like, you know, rich people, this, that, and the next. And I said, look, let's take the 10 richest people in the world, okay, ranked by Forbes. Okay, how many of them are not married?
I have no clue.
Jeff Bezos.
Really?
Okay? And he was married.
Wow.
Right? And he was married, so that doesn't count. Right? How many of them made that fortune and whatever as single people? Very few.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that you are sellable. You are more sellable as a union than you are as an individual.
Yeah. 100%.
Because even CEOs of companies, board members, all those things, you can almost say, you can almost say the length of your marriage as I've been married for 20 years. And people are like, oh man, you're my guy. I trust you.
Exactly. What does it show? It shows staying power.
Yes. Yes.
You have the pyramid of life.
Yes. Yeah. That's why when Bill and Melinda split, it was kind of like, you know, like we
what's going on?
Bought into that longevity that, you know, you guys are gonna, you know, for sure.
They actually get divorced and they just split. I didn't count them, right? But yeah, you know, it's one of those things.
There we go.
At that level, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Right?
You have more money than God.
It doesn't matter for sure. For sure.
What are the best parts for you, Rumbi? We didn't hear what they were for you.
Honestly, I think you guys have said it all. Like, it really is the companionship, but like companionship for life, as you said, can it not happen outside of marriage? I think so. Sorry, I don't think so. And just that this person is in your corner for like rooting for you all the way. And similar to Amanda, I definitely know marriage was something I did so that he could gain respect in my family. And I guess vice versa. And especially in the society we live in here, it makes a difference.
That's interesting for Czech Republic.
I mean, they don't care, but because I'm an African woman in this very Eurocentric environment, it does make a difference. It's kind of like, it takes it seriously. I mean, we had an incident once. We walked into a shop and we're looking around and the shop assistant seemed like quite nice, but then they started talking to him in Czech and then they were like, hey, is this your chick, like your girl? But like kind of like a disrespectful, like, you know, someone he was just banging and he was like very offended. He's like, no, this is my wife, like, excuse you. Like, so just that weird, some people have this weird mindset. It's not everyone, because here absolutely you can just be partners and, you know, I have many students, their parents are just partners. They're not even married or whatever. And honestly, when people ask me, how does it feel to be married? I'm like, what it felt like, what it feels like, what it felt like before. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. It's just everyone else has. It's like, oh my goodness, like, you know, type of puts
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yes. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
sure.
Go for it.
Is do you think that women, as a generic term, have this pressure to get married? I mean, one, and also, or rather, let me phrase it. Do you think that women long to be married? That's actually what I was asking.
That's the more deep question.
Yeah.
The pressure to get married, for sure.
And it's getting worse.
That one is...
Okay.
Yeah.
The longing. I think for me personally, the longing is because we seek to be understood, we seek to fit in, we seek to be accepted. And because marriage sometimes is like that key that gets that, like as in people will respect you because they'll be like, my ningi, you know, whereas you're just muskana in the family when you're not married, you know, like, and I'm talking about culturally here because that's, I guess, in the Western world, it'd be a different ballgame, but definitely in Zimbabwe, I have cousins who are younger than me who've never, because of the way Zimbabwe is, never worked really, because obviously Zim is Zim. And yet when they spoke, you know, people would be like, hey, my Ningi is saying something, you know, like really look at them like with reverence. And when I speak, before when I was married, they would just be like, Amanda, you know, like just like, you know, go sit down. You know, and I'm like, I am very good at my job. You know, I send money home, I do all the things, but because I don't have that, I still don't go into the special club that women have for wives.
Yes.
What's that book? The Wives Club, whatever it's called.
The First Wives
that.
Club or
First Wives Club, like that. It literally is. And that's why when Rimbi was talking about the kitchen tea, I feel like when the kitchen tea is happening, it's like when you get your certificate.
Yes.
You know, like you've entered the golden gates.
Yes.
You know.
That's one.
Yeah, definitely.
And I to just add to that, I think the pressure is absolutely 100% there, like I don't know, but the longing as well is because society has somewhat equated marriage to being worth choosing. And so the longing that then comes is a desire to be chosen. Like there's something in me, as Amanda says, a quality, something that is desirable in me that someone wants to spend the rest of their life with. But when, as a woman, you are not quote unquote chosen, it's like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know,
why are you still single?
Why are you? But no one looks at men and says, "Oh, but why are you still single, sir?" You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like, boys will be boys, you know, type of thing. So there's absolutely this pressure. I don't necessarily know if it comes purely from someone desiring to be in a marriage, or I think it is a combination of maybe a desire to find partnership, companionship, as we've all spoken about here. But I think a lot of it is that thing of like, you know, how people look at you. I mean, as soon as people hear that you are getting married or you're married, it's like people are like, oh, you are somebody in this realm. And it's not
when you get engaged, they already start thinking of you. And it's not
just the matriarchs who perceive you, like even people our age. And, you know, I don't know, it's this weird thing that we have in our society that you had something worth choosing if you
and when you're dating and he's not proposing, people are like, you
what's
know,
wrong
like
with you?
What's wrong there? Is your relationship not strong enough? Is your this and that? And it's like this ring then automatically means things that it might not actually mean.
So it's
I have a friend who wears a ring on a ring finger. She's single, she's not married, she's never getting married. She wears a ring just because it just gets her to like walk through the bullshit. She's like, no one asks me questions, you know?
Like, that's impressive. That's really impressive.
Yeah, kudos, actually. You know, we talked about the best parts. What are the toughest parts of marriage, do you guys feel? Like, what are you like, okay, maybe if I was single, this would not be an issue for me.
You know, I think that the toughest part about it is from my perspective, is you are now technically responsible for somebody else. Okay, and you will always be responsible for that person, even if you end up not being together anymore. But you will always be responsible for that individual, right? And that means that, you know, every decision you make, you know, no matter how selfish it is or not, is that person comes into consideration.
Yes.
Like, everything. And I think that for me was a bit of a tough one to manage and navigate. I still navigate it every day, right? But you know, it's a sense that it's not just about me. And yes, I will still make selfish decisions, right? Because they need to be. But in making that decision, I am always thinking about that other person. Sometimes like, whatever. Like, I'm on my own and I'm still going. But you in that decision making process, you still thought about your partner, right? So it's being responsible for that person, and because you chose to be responsible for them, it makes it different from having a child where you have no choice but to be responsible. If you're a half decent human being.
If you're a half decent,
I mean, you know, some guys just disappear or some ladies leave.
True. Some people don't care.
Yeah, we're excluding the outliers, right? So just normal lives. So it's that for me is challenging, and I think it will always be challenging. There's times where you're just like, but you know, that whip, man, like I need to get it. I need to get that G class. And if I was on my own, I probably.
What do you mean house deposit? To me, I need that car.
It doesn't matter when you got started in them car like for the next 6 years of my life, but I'm pushing. I'm pushing the whip, and I'm being facetious, right? But it's those things. Right? So it says that where you go, where you live, how you move, you always have to consider somewhere else. Where before you had absolute freedom, and I think that's absolute freedom. Wake up, you can do something, you can't do something. It's up to you, but you always have to take into account someone else and be accountable
for someone else. Yes.
True.
For me,
that's I think for me is the toughest bit.
Yeah. Rumbi, for you?
I think honestly is that you cannot hide your flaws.
Like, okay.
When you are with it can be with any partner, to be honest, with any partner, but like in marriage, it's like it's there, it sits with you, it's there, and any childhood issues or trauma or anything that you had growing up, they come out, and you cannot kind of be like, oh, it doesn't exist. Like you are, this person really holds that mirror up, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a tough part that's really beautiful, but it's a very, very revealing experience where you're just like, oh, or they'll say something about, you know, like, I didn't realize I was this person, right? Like it really, it opens you up, and you have to lean into it as opposed to shutting it out, but it can be a very uncomfortable part of it all. It's the beauty of it, but it's really hard sometimes when you're just like, man, today I don't feel like being aware of that. I'm just gonna I just want to shut off today, but and it works both ways. And for you,
that actually falls into like with family as well. Like when your partner points out your family is a bit crazy, you're like,
yes,
please.
And sometimes you're like, oh gosh, I have to, like when you get a call and they're like, oh, is everything on? And just like, May, wake up, how do I even break this down? Let's how do we start? You know, so
I think you guys said it all perfectly though, because like for me, it's compromise without resentment. So like that, like, okay, we'll do this because we won't get the G-Wagon because we're getting a house deposit. You know, when I see the G-Wagon driving past, I'm like, I don't want that car. Like, you know, that, exactly. Like being able to, whereas when you're by yourself, as you said, you can just eat 2-minute noodles and call it a day in your G-Wagon, you know, you don't have to answer to anyone else. But that compromising without holding it against someone, like if you've decided to then compromise on something
else. And being patient, like let's say if you've made a decision to something, it's like, okay, you can't just like, now, today I'm gone. It's like, sometimes it's like, okay, the agreement is we're going to wait and do this then while we do this now. And patience to be like, okay, we'll get there. That G-Wagon will come, just not now.
And for the record, I use the G-Wagon thing as just as an example, right?
I know, no, but you gave me ideas. You gave me ideas. I was like, I want the G-Wagon.
No, but you know, as Black people are like, yeah, you see, this is exactly what we're talking about. You're gonna go spend money on the G-Wagon and eat like the news. So like, no, guys, we were just using it as
it's an example.
It's an example, y'all. We're curious to know. Obviously, Amanda and I are females. We have our own perspective around marriage, about how females perceive it, how we perceive it, but we also have our own ideas about how men perceive marriage, and we can get into that. But we're curious to know from you how men look at marriage. Like, what are the conversations around marriage? Because I think we talked a little bit about the pressure on women to get married, but like, how does it work in your circles? Like, you know, is the pressure getting worse? I was just like, whatever.
You know, funny enough, I don't think we as guys we really discuss marriage prior to getting married at all. You know,
that's a major difference.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I had one conversation before I got married, and that was with my old man. You know, and I think I'm quite blessed to have a dad who's quite liberal and quite cosmopolitan in his thinking, you know. So in that conversation, it really kind of laid the foundation of whether, you know, I wanted to get married or was going to choose to get married or not, right? So it was great, but I think as guys, we really don't talk about it. We're like, okay, cool. We kind of roll with it and go with it. And you, like you said, you do what's expected of you because you're a man and you're expected to do certain things as a man. But I mean, did I ever have a conversation with my mates around about getting married? Wow. No, not once.
That's
wow.
But how then do you make the decision? Is it really that thing of like, you're like, yeah, okay, I can settle down now. Does something click in your head, or you just feel like, it's about the right time for me? How does that?
I know some guys, and I know we're talking broad strokes, right? So yes. I know some guys really want to get married. Like there's some like super traditionalist guys who are friends of mine. Some Tosa guys who are like, guys, you know, for me, it's about getting married. I want to get married. I want a wife. I want to build a home. I want to have a tribe of kids, and I want to build that family thing, because that's what they sold, and that's I think generally what they desire. And I think that's beautiful, and that's wonderful. And then also some other guys were just like, well, you know, let's see how it goes, you know, and they end up in relationships. I mean, my wife and I dated for what, 8 years before we got married, you know, and I think. Kill me for saying this, but I think that, you know, if it wasn't for her saying, yo, homie, like,
what's going on? Yeah.
You know, we probably would have dated for longer. You know what I mean? Like, we were very comfortable, like, because, like I said, I was blessed with the fact that it just worked, you know?
Yeah.
And life would have just continued. So I don't know. I think guys do need to talk about it more and have, you know, conversations around the perception of how they feel about marriage. And also we're talking heterosexual relationships here. But I don't know. I mean, it's something that you've actually just sparked around. I never thought about that. We don't talk about it. It's like, are you going to get married? Yeah, maybe one day. Okay, cool. Is she the one? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Wow, you are blowing my mind right now, because I like the way women talk about marriage.
Preach, because it's like discussion groups, like you can write theses over how much women talk about marriage. Like, and I have friends who are like, oh, I don't know if I want to get married, and then it's like, people are like, how could you not want to? Like, even if they don't want to, the conversation will still be had with them. Like, but why? Yeah. But you can't escape.
Yeah. Madness. And I think we think men look at it like a trap. We're like,
yes. Yes.
I think men feel like okay, you want him to be welcoming about the idea about marriage and not feel like he's being trapped into it.
Yeah.
So it's so weird because we think it's like, wow, we can't wait to do this thing. But at the same time, we kind of half know men will be hesitant. We think men will be hesitant to enter marriage.
Yeah.
I think it's somewhat true, like there's an essence of, being trapped and confined for the reason that we all discussed now, just previously to this point, and also the way that I think us as married men talk about marriage. If I speak to another married guy or somebody else, hey, how's it to be married? Less than 1% of people who are coming back and say, no one ever comes with an initial response saying, oh, it's the most wonderful, it's the most beautiful thing. I think not one guy has ever responded.
That's so sad.
Right? It's always like, hey, Brian, hey, this thing, it's it's this, it's that, whatever. Yeah. But it's amazing, I'm happy, and right? Yeah. So we always had the negative, precluding the kind of the positive.
Yeah.
And I think it's like that because, like I said, for us, it's for some people, I think it's important, but it doesn't change the price of bread.
Yeah.
For reasons of like you're saying, like for women, for women, it gives them status, it gives them, purposeness of positioning in life, etc. For us, we're always doing that anyway, and so it's like, I think a lot of guys think it's just the next logical step.
Yes.
And if people do look at it as a driver, it's more so as a driver to have kids rather than a driver to get married.
And also with the pressure you spoke of, where you feel, as you alluded to, as men, the responsibility. So obviously, like, am I voluntarily being like, bring on the extra pressure? Like, it's naturally, even me, if someone was like, now you're going to have to, care for 2 households, I would also be like, can we, do you get what I mean? Just if you kind of.
Another load, right? You're like, oh gosh, something else I got to do.
Yes.
Right. But then also there's also that pressure from a male's perspective that says that for you to be seen as a man, you must be able to take the load.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, if you come from a family where you are the golden child as the boy child, and you look after your siblings, as a lot of families have, especially in Africa.
Yes.
You look after your siblings, you look after your parents, you have a partner, you look after the partner, then you also responsibility for you to look after her siblings and her parents, her family and whatever else, right? But for the few who can do that because financially they're a bit more well off and can manage that thing, you're seen as
pedestal.
Skilled. Yeah, that's a man. You do it. Like,
yes.
I'm like, what? Like, yeah, of course. And like, don't get me wrong. Guys who can do that. I take my hat off to you. I'm like, you're a soldier. But for the average man on the street, that's impossible. So
the pressure is tough.
Yeah. Having brought on talking about family, do you think they have much say within your marriage? So if times are tough or times are good, maybe only times are tough. Africans never talk about when times are good. When times are tough, do you think they should have a say, like, do this, do that? Like, or do you think it should literally solely be between the two of you and maybe a therapist?
I don't know. I think that's really personal preference from my perspective. Subjectively, I know that when times are tough for us, we rely on counsel from both of our parents. I speak to my folks all the time. I think I get most of my counsel from there, and then I also then look at other forms of counsel, whether that is my mentors or my therapists. It's there, and it goes back to kind of what I was saying about earlier about it when you talk to people. Like, I'm not okay with sharing everything with everyone. Okay, so I compartmentalize my struggles where I feel comfortable doing that. then take all of that, basket into one bit, and then I make a decision based on the information that I've got. Right.
Yeah.
So I think it really is up to you. I know some people are not close with their parents. Some people are unfortunate, are unlucky, or I said it's unfortunate that they don't have parents anymore, or they don't have good relationships with their parents. So I think you can do what's right for you, but do something about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think we can go on. Like, this has been such a interesting perspective on marriage, and there's so many layers. I think, Kudzi, we could even do part 2 of this, because
I know, really.
I think you've also made, sitting here with you has made me kind of sit back and be like, wow, like, think about it in a different way. I think we have similar views, but also very nuanced views on how you perceive marriage. And so I think we'll wind down the conversation, but I would like to ask you, we've talked a lot about the hardships, the complexities, the things to consider, the weight, the challenge, and all that. How would you say, going into your 9 years of marriage, how do you keep it interesting, or the spark, or the interest, or the fun? How do you do that? Because I think it's so, we've heard time and time again, so easy to become complacent, and everything is just like, it can get cool. The heat can, temperature can go down a little bit. Like, what would you say? Yeah.
Wow. Jeez. I actually don't have an answer for you, right? And I'll tell you why. Is that it's like the dynamics of relationships are always going to be dynamic, right? And change. The way you see each other, the way you vibe with each other, is going to change, and they're going to be lulls. I mean, it's not going to be like you're dating and you see each other once a week or once a month, and every time you see each other, you want to rip your clothes off, right? But it changes, and I think for me, I'd say be comfortable with the change, right? Be comfortable with the change, and if you're comfortable with the change, you know that you will ebb and flow. Ebb and wane, whatever the terminology is, where you get back to certain things. Like, I've got 2 kids under the age of 6. Okay, like, there is no time for anything but parenting. All right, so I parent 24 hours a day, and then I'm at work for the other 24 hours in the day.
Yeah.
Right? So you try and find things. I mean, people will say, try and make time and all those things, but whatever works for you as a couple of individuals. If you find it hard to make time at home, make time to go away and connect and experience each other again. I think is something that's good advice and Bible. I need to try it.
Try it. Yeah,
I need to try it, but it's I think that you've got to find ways of doing that. I think there's stages in your life that you go through if you're going to follow that marriage kind of highway, which is it's all good and it's great and it's lovey-dovey in the beginning. Then you have kids, and that changes a lot. Like, getting married, I don't think changes your life as a couple. Having kids, 100
definitely
changes. It does a complete 180, right? So be comfortable with that change, and then also hope that you weather the storm in the base, that your kids are also going to grow up, and when they do grow up and they're not so like
dependent,
hands on you can find then time to do that for yourself. I mean, I think that's the best way of answering that question.
No, definitely.
Everybody's got their vices in life, and they manage that accordingly. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I watched a clip with Michelle Obama, and she talked about that, and she was like, there was a time when it was all about Barack, and all she could do was just take care of the kids, and not to, like, you never know the intricacies of someone's relationship, but just to use that as advice. It was like, it really does ebb and flow, and you do have phases, because we're only 6 months into parenting. very young.
But
But I'm already thinking, this is not the same. No date night, or even if there is a date night, it might swap and change on you. The day you're planning to go somewhere, the baby's sick, or so I do agree with you that it is phases, and you change as a couple when you enter parenthood. So
I am very scared. Like, if there's one thing, Amanda knows, I'm just like,
you should be.
Kudzi's doing you a favor saying that, because it's true. People romanticize it, but you should be ready. And I think communication is vital at every point.
I'm like, people assume women typically always want to have the children. I'm like, I really,
scary.
And I think because I have close people around me who have children, so I see, and then I happen to work with children, so I see as well. So it's just like this, overload, sensory overload. I'm just like, this is too much. For sure.
I mean, like with having kids, you as a guy, it doesn't change our lives in terms of how we operate much, right? Like, I think the biggest challenge for me with having kids in relation to my partner, right, was that I was no longer the most important person in her life.
That part,
right? And I mean that with all due respect. Right? I can no longer be the most important person in your life, right? Because you now have a little person who's also the most important person in my life. All right. So our focus has to go there. And at the same time, you have to try and keep that connection bit
going.
It takes a lot more effort because you only had one channel initially, when you've got to split yourself into two, and like Amanda's like, at 6 months, little guy or girl is on you every moment of every day. And I shudder to think of how life-changing that must be for a mom, not so much for a guy, but for a mom, because you don't have a break. I can pick up my clothes and go to work, right? That's intense. I still have that as a release from home. You are on it all the time, whether you're there or here, right? So when you decide to have kids, be 100% sure that you are ready to have kids. It's a scary thing, of course, but like 4 billion other women in the world have also done it. They've done it and they're fine. So you will be fine. You'll
be fine, Rumbi.
You'll be fine. But it does, and understand that it changes a lot. And I think that when we go into relationships and have kids, and whenever we and in the normal scope of things, we don't think about that. For me, it was a big adjustment. I won't even lie. It was a massive, massive adjustment. And even more so when we had our second child, right? Because there's 2 people, right? So again, I fall to the bottom of the pecking order again. we were laughing over Christmas. My brother and his family came over, and my dad was like, okay, so for the next 3 weeks, I am now, number 12 in the pecking order.
Oh.
And I said, for my mom, it goes, the grandbabies come first, then it's me and Tawi, then it's then her daughter-in-laws, then it's me and Tawi, then it's dad.
Shame. Poor dad.
And then when everyone leaves, it's back to being dad. So I get that. But
I get that. It makes a lot of sense.
It's a great thing when you do decide to have kids. So if you want to do it.
Yeah,
I have a friend who says the exact same thing, and they have a dog. So he's looking at the dog. It's like, it's you and me, buddy, because at the bottom, it's like sometimes the dog even gets more attention because they're going for walks and stuff. So yeah, men, sorry, and you.
No, thank you so much. I think, as you said, Kudzi, you've really dropped a lot of gems, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will benefit from what you've shared. Thank you so much for being so open, and also giving us so many different perspectives and views around marriage. I don't know, Am, if there's anything else you'd like
definitely.
to say?
We cannot thank you enough. Yes. Your view was very unfiltered, which is what we love on this podcast. It gives us food for thought. People can't say you weren't told. We told you on this podcast. So I can't wait to hear the feedback, and we'll definitely let you know what people are saying, because I'm sure this is going to start a lot of conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a parting word for me, I think that these conversations need to happen more often, and it'd also be great. I implore you, I challenge you guys as those of the content, is to get somebody with a different viewpoint on what I say, because I think somebody would have a different view on it and see what were their expectations. I mean, the marriage conversation can go in perpetuity, as you've seen,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Share nuances, share ideas that might help somebody who doesn't have access to that conversation. And good luck to you and your podcast. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
coming on board.
And for everyone who's listened, thank you so much for listening. As always, you can hit us up. It's layeredpod@gmail.com. We're on Instagram, it's Layered. We're on Twitter, it's Layered Pod. I feel like a broken record. I always say this, but thank you always for the feedback, the love. It goes a long way, and we appreciate you. Thank you again, Kudzai, and we will see you on the next episode. Take care,
everyone.
Bye.
They will tear you up like a paper toy. Oh, no, no, no.